both sides.
Bruh. No.
Yeah, and then all we're just gonna do is kind of like,
What is this live on?
Oh, it's for documenting and recording.
Is that Facebook?
Oh, God.
No, it's not.
and that's gonna be good enough. You see what I'm saying? Okay. Actually, if you could put it on,
Oh, that's
put it on this side too. Like, if you could just kind of do right around and just frame it like that. Okay. And then when you're done, um,
They hear us.
you can just lay it down right here. Okay. All right. What's your name? What? I need it. Thank
It's
you.
been 5 minutes since they put in that new machine. It's already freaking me out.
First, they want to take over our cameras. Now they want to record us learning. What is this world coming to?
Yeah.
And be good. We're out
Does
here.
that work? Yay. So, here's the deal. What I'll do is I'm going to introduce kind of like what we're doing today, and then we're just going to have an organic flow. We're going to start off, I'm going to start off kind of explaining the chalk talk. And then I'll be very explicit. I'll just say, all right, Mr. Hopefeld, we're going to go for it like that. So, okay. Oh, were there whiteboards
Making name tags.
and is there a specific procedure or they just go together?
Usually one person for every group
Not it.
does it.
Okay.
Are you guys singers? No? What are we doing? You gotta sing today.
Now we can make Blake do it.
Blake!
Blake, find your name, bud.
Tradition. That's alright.
Yeah.
I forgot I gotta tell you that.
How do you not?
Blake, you find it? Right here, man.
I like it, not people. He's like, yeah. We have coaches.
You doing all those for us?
Look. I feel it. Bro, what is that? So squishy. Did you steal it? Cool. Maybe.
All right, we're ready to go. Ready to go? Yeah. Okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. How are you? Good. My name is Mr. Holden, and I believe you all know Mr. Hofelt. Is that right?
They may not know.
You may not know? Okay.
They've probably seen me before, some of them.
Yeah,
So,
okay. Well, let me just tell you what's going on today. Mr. Hofelt, Mr. Harder, your teacher, and I got together. We wanted to plan a lesson, and the focus of the lesson is to help people think about what next year is going to be like.
Oh, Pledge of Allegiance. Sorry, Dave.
Yeah. Hold on a second.
Right there. Maybe. All right, we'll say, I pledge allegiance
To the flag.
Oh,
Which stands, one nation, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
sometimes that happens because we have students say it. So some are really vocal.
Right.
And then others, it's like, hey, put your mouth
Right,
up to
right.
the,
Wait, is this thing on? Hello? Is this thing
Yeah,
on?
yeah.
Okay. All right. So anyway, what we were saying is next year your school is going to longer class periods, 100 minutes, and we're working to help the rest of the staff understand what that might look like. So we designed a lesson a little differently than you normally do, and we think you're going to enjoy it, and more importantly, we think you're going to learn a lot today. Okay? So My name is Mr. Holden. He's Mr. Hopelt. Just say Mr. H,
Holden.
and one of us will turn around.
Mr. H.
Is that
Mr.
cool?
H. Mr. H.
All right, good. All right, so can I have your attention? Can you guys look up on the screen for a second, please? Later today, we're going to do what's called a chalk talk. And I wanted to introduce it to you right now, so that way, when it's time to do it, we could just jump into it. But I wanted you to look at this. On the screen, what I want you to do is, at your tables, just quickly, in 30 seconds, describe to each other what you see happening here on the screen. Okay, I want to hear your language. Go for it. What did you see?
Teamwork.
Okay, all right, more detail though. They're writing down their ideas.
It's been 20 minutes now.
All right, good. Do you notice any other specific details? No? Okay, that's good though. You got the basic ideas. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. What do you see? Let me hear some shout outs. What do you see in the picture? We see teamwork. What else do we see?
People writing.
People writing. Good. That's really important too. What else do you see? Yeah. Different views of different people. I love that. I call that perspective, right? So, or points of view. So we see people's different points of view or perspectives. Good job. All right. What a chalk talk is, there's a question in the center of the page. Every student has a marker or a colored pencil, and they write their ideas. And I want to show you a quick video and go over a couple of tips to help you out, because later on we're going to do this. So take a look. You're going to be in a small group. You're already in small groups. That's accomplished. You're going to write at the same time. When you write, do you notice that people write and then circle what they wrote? That's how I know your thought is complete. You need to write, and then when you're done thinking and done writing, you'll circle it. And then when it's circled, you can write to each other. I want to encourage you to read what your classmates are writing and then write math notes to them, okay? So this is, since we're talking about math, if you see your classmate write something that you don't understand or you agree with or you disagree with, you're going to write back and forth to that person. And then the teachers, Mr. Hofelt and I, are going to walk around with our markers writing questions to you for you to think about. There might be a little bit of a struggle because we might want to put a question that's kind of challenging. So we're going to ask you questions to put your thinking in the right direction, okay? Take a look at this video, and we'll just show the first like 30 seconds or such. If I can.
Are you getting it?
Yeah, I got it. Okay. All right. There's no sound, but it's okay. This is a health teacher in the gym with a big sheet of chart paper or butcher paper, and you see how the kids are around. You're only going to be in groups of 2, 3, and 4, but this was a larger group. And they're all drawing lines, and they're answering the question. So I wanted to give you a visual of what that would look like. Now here's the catch. It's a silent conversation, meaning while you're writing, you're not talking to each other. If you have something to say, you write it, because you think deeper and you learn more when you take the time to write like that, okay? So do you see how this student is writing a note to this other student over here in a different color? And that's the other thing. Every student at the table will have a different color marker so we could figure out who wrote what. So that's what you have to make sure you have a different color marker, okay? All right. We're going to move on. So these are some tips. You can answer the question we ask. You can ask additional questions. Like, let's say if you don't understand something, you could ask me a question or you could ask your classmate. You could respond to questions. I want you to draw lines to connect thoughts. I want you to draw pictures. If you could take the math and make it look different, then that's okay. And then answer our questions. What I want you to do is at your tables, just in about 30 seconds, describe to each other. I want to hear you confirm that you understand what we're doing today during the chalk talk. So explain the chalk talk to your classmates. All right, go.
Right.
So what are we doing today?
Describe and give you an opinion about
Okay, you're gonna answer it. How are you gonna answer it? You're gonna have to answer it in writing, okay? And you all write at the same time or one at a time? Same time, good. And can you look to see what your classmates write?
what you guys say.
Yes, yeah, as a matter of fact, I want you to
What do you ask
depend on
me to
each
do?
other. If you don't know, then look over sheet writing, look over here, and I want you to help each other, okay, to share ideas.
Okay, does that make sense?
Good, sweet.
So it's kind of like group chat.
All right.
Except on
Do you guys feel you understand what we're doing today?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, sweet. Right on. Okay, you guys feeling good? All right. Okay. Here is the next step. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have a conversation. We're going to have a conversation on quadratic functions, okay, or quadratic equations is the better way to say it. But I want to know, what vocabulary should we expect to hear during this lesson? I want to move this from lots of teacher talk to lots of student talk. But I want to make sure that everyone is clear on the language that we're expecting today. So I want to give you about 15 seconds at your table to brainstorm all of the words and phrases that we should hear on a lesson about quadratics, okay? Go ahead and talk to each other.
You guys have a visual of quadratics? I mean, you guys have been, this whole unit, you've been working on quadratics, right? Does that make sense? So, like some of the words you would use to solve the different types of situations, things like that, right? Does that make sense? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right. So talk to each other for about 15 seconds. What words should you hear?
What are some words you hear when you solve a quadratic?
We'll start off with
What are
quadratic.
some methods that you use?
Okay,
to solve
quadratics, one, right? What else?
Can you think of one?
No, you can just talk to each
There's
other
a
right
couple
now.
up on the
What other
board,
words
so-
should you hear? If you're solving an equation, maybe the word solution. Would you agree?
That's one of
Okay.
them.
All right. And
So,
what are some
so
other
one,
words
so
that you
one of
all
the
been
ways
talking about
we
in
solve
class?
quadratics is by factoring, right? So factoring is probably a pretty
Factor,
important
beautiful,
word
love
to
that.
know.
Factoring, that's one way to
Does that
solve
make
the
sense?
equation.
What does that mean to you
What are some
visually,
other ways to solve the
factoring?
equation?
What do you think of?
Excuse me?
That's what
Graphing?
we want you to do.
Perfect, exactly. Factoring,
Okay.
graphing.
Okay.
And I think you
So,
know one other,
be
or at
thinking
least
of-
one other way, right?
Like the situations we use to solve, what's another way we solve quadratics?
The, not circle,
Words, okay.
rectangle, well, it is a rectangle.
What about
Triangle.
visually, like what program do you use on
You can
the
do this,
computer?
shape. Yeah, there we go.
Right, what it's called.
So it's some of those words. Now, when I'm going to ask people to share out,
no.
now you have some language. I'm going to
in-
call and
in
split
that
this
class
table. I
when
want
he
you to
wants
share
to
some of
graph
that, okay?
something,
Think of some other
use
words
that
that go
word.
along with that.
And so then,
You guys have some
what
ideas?
is the shape of a quadratic? So be thinking about all the things with
Square
quadratics.
root,
Does that make
perfect,
sense?
okay.
What you guys come up
Exactly.
with?
What's some of the other words that you
And
and
how to
or
factor?
Mr. Harder have been talking about the last few days in class? Solution, that's a perfect word. Exactly, because we're looking for the solution when we solve something, right? Okay. You think of some other words?
Yeah, I teach your sister. She's the twin, the other twin.
What about when you multiply two numbers and you say, like, let's say 3 times 7 equals 21. What are 3 and 7? Let me help you out. They're called factors. And the answer to a multiplication problem is a
Today's news.
product. Right? So think about words like that. What's the answer to a addition problem? What's the answer to a subtraction problem? What's the answer to a division problem? Think about that. Okay. All right. Try to talk to each other about that. All right. Can you guys think of some words that would be good to use? Maybe some words that you guys have talked about in class.
What about, what are the other ways to solve quadratics? What about graphing? What do you look for on a graph?
Can you guys think of any?
First, we have to solve the equation, find out the points that we have to put on the graph.
Factoring, square root.
Right.
Beautiful. Good. All right.
Then
Think of
what?
any others?
What are the solutions?
What is Desmos? Desmos?
Oh, Desmos. Oh, yeah. We're going to actually show you some Desmos later
I
today.
don't really,
All right, good.
I'm not
Good.
really explaining.
All right, you guys have some words?
Square root.
Square root.
Right.
Okay. What else?
And that's what we want you guys to work on, is be able to verbalize and communicate what you're saying, okay?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I heard of several students give me some vocabulary that would be good for you all to use today. So those students who had some words to share, I'd like for you to share them out. So we'll start off at this table. What were some vocabulary words? Okay, so vocabulary. And you said graphing. Okay, graph or graphing. You said factor or factoring, right? Okay, say that again. Complete the square. Good. Okay. Let me give you a few more, if that's okay. I wrote some down. When you solve a problem, then you have found the solution. Okay. What do you call when there's a like a letter instead of a number? What is that called? Variable. Beautiful. Thank you. All right. Variable. Whenever you have a number that's next to a variable, like 3x or 5y or something like that. Okay, an exponent is when it's on the other side and raised, but we are going to be talking about some numbers that we're going to call coefficients. Okay, all right. And it's okay if you're not sure what that is. It's our job to kind of help you with that. But this is some language that we think might help you today. There's two more words that I want to put up here. Quadratic, and then when we put equations on a graph, we have to put points somewhere on either the x-axis or the y-axis, okay? All right? Here's what I'd like for you to do. At your tables, I want you all to just say these words to each other at your table. I want to hear you all use these words right now. Just say the words. Okay, say them.
You say them all?
Okay. So do you guys feel comfortable with this language? Feel comfortable with this language? All right. Mr. Hofeld and I are going to be helping you and listening for you all to use the language. It's not enough if we're the ones saying it. We want you to promote it. We want you all to say it. All right. So I'll leave this list up here, and then we will move on to the next part. So Mr. Hofeld is going to share some math problems with you, and we're going to have you use the whiteboards to work out your solution. So at this time, can we have one person from each table get whiteboards and markers for each person at your table? Whenever you're ready, just go ahead and tell me do the problems. And
Okay,
we're good.
sounds good.
You're on TV. So here's what I want you all to do. I want you to make your best effort. I want to hear you all using this language, okay? It's not enough just to do math. You learn math more when you talk about it, but you have to use the words of mathematics, okay? It's okay if you struggle with it, ask me help, but my goal is to hear you all talk about it, okay? Thank you, gentlemen.
That's a lot of hands.
live?
Screens, those are good.
So you can use that for live right there? Yeah, it's broadcasting all across the country right now. No, I'm just kidding. It's not across the country. It's, you know, well, here's what's happening. There's some teachers in another room in the building, and they're the only ones. They're math teachers. And we're going to go back, and it's sort of like they're my coach. So after the lesson, we're going to go back into the same room, and they're going to basically give me feedback. They're going to say, hey, Dave, this was good. Dave, that was horrible, stuff like that. Okay, so
Okay, we good?
the
Everybody
only
got
people watching
boards?
are math teachers from Grand Island. Okay.
All right. Okay, we're gonna do 2 practice problems. Mr. Harder said that you guys are, or hopefully at least one person at your table. Is it okay if they talk through this together?
However you want. Yeah.
Okay. Try to do it independently, but if you get stuck, ask one of your partners for kind of help and guidance. But solving quadratics by square roots, if you notice, have you worked with the form ax squared plus bx plus c? Yeah. Okay. When there's no x value, we can solve this by using square roots. So we want to see if you know how to do that. And then over here, we have one that you can factor. Okay? So we'd like you to try those 2. When you get done with the first one, raise your hand and we'll come check to make sure everybody has it. Does that make sense? Okay?
Well, you add 9. Almost factoring, never mind, that's factoring. Where'd you get?
What do you think? How are we gonna start? Oh, you're new, aren't you? Okay, that's all right. Did you guys do this at North Star? Okay, because Mr. Harder said you're new, so you may not have done this before, so can you help me? Okay, thank you. Okay, so how are we gonna start? Because there's no B term, you don't have to do the factors of 4. So we're not gonna factor that one, okay? Yeah, solve it as if it's just x, yeah, good. Nice, guys. Oh, one thing you're forgetting on the 7. What are you forgetting on the 7? Yeah, that's good. Oh, we're stuck, huh? All right. Okay, that's all right. So tell me what you're thinking. Okay, so you're thinking complete the square. You're set up. So you're trying to do that here. Okay. The thing is, there's no B term, there's no middle term. So what if I cover up this 2? How would you solve that? Add 9. We could do that right now.
So you close the setup right now.
So now it's x.
There's a couple of ways you can approach this. I mean, it's obviously you have a calculator
Good.
to do that, but the 49.
Okay, now how do you
is
get
one
rid of
those,
the square?
Perfect squares, right?
There you go.
There's obviously a number smaller than you multiply by itself.
Yeah, where are they?
You
Absolutely. I'll pass them out.
just think of, like, for instance, what's so obviously, so keep going.
We already got calculated.
I know you could do it with
I got one right here.
I wanted
I got one right here.
Calculator points.
Bad 10. You later. See?
It's not looking.
what times what equals 49?
What times what is 49?
Okay. Does that work? Is she right?
Oh, you're trying to factor. It's Dakota, is that right? Okay, let me give you a hint. Let me give you a hint.
Let's try
What
this.
if I
What is-
covered up that 2? How would you solve x minus 9 equals 40?
10 times 10 is 100.
That's
right?
true.
So we know 10 is too big.
Right, but I'm saying, just let's
And what's
pretend
5 times 5?
that this problem is x minus 9
25,
equals
right?
40.
That's too small.
How would you solve that?
So it's
If it was just
somewhere
a regular
between there,
equation.
right? That's one of the things that I do to see if my
Yeah,
answer is
yeah,
reasonable.
do
I try
that.
to figure out.
Try that, see what you
I
get.
try to go to numbers that I
It's
know
x squared,
really
it's
well.
not x.
And 7's in between there, so it's like,
We're
now
short
how
two,
can
I'll
you
get
check?
two more. You guys have calculators?
What?
Get one thing on the 7. What, if you put in 7, 7 squared is 49, 49 minus 9 is 40, that's true. There's another number that you can put in. Because when you square it, it becomes positive. You know what it is? Remember what happens when you take the square root? It can be,
Well, in this case,
For
it's
example,
a
could it be
square root of
negative?
49, but it's one
is
of
it
those
negative 7
facts
times a
that
negative 7,
you just
49?
know. So what's a
And then
square root
49
of that
minus
square
9, is that 40?
Hmm?
So whenever you square root both sides, it can always be plus or minus. Does that make sense? Okay, you remember doing that? Okay, cool.
That's the answer. Yeah. Now, here's the thing. On this one, you're factoring, but I want you to trust your
Close.
instincts.
How do you
If you're
solve
not
that?
sure, go ahead and talk to your neighbors.
No.
Okay?
How do you get rid of a square?
I think together, I think you guys should definitely work this out.
No. Well, if you divided by x, you're right, it would turn out to be x, but then the problem is there would be an x on the other side. So that's not gonna work, that's gonna make it up, what?
Right. And do you know, can you
Square
explain to me why it would be plus or minus?
Square root both sides, that undoes a square.
Seven.
Okay. Does that make sense to you? Okay. Now,
Right.
so
So,
you got that?
you know how to put square root in?
Okay. Now, did everyone else get the same answer for that?
7. Now,
Yeah.
here's the other
Okay.
thing.
And what about
We
this
gotta
one?
plug this number
Did you all
back
get the
in,
same
right?
answer for this one?
So 7 times 7 is 49.
Oh, is that finished?
49 minus 9 is 40, that is
Oh,
true.
okay.
But there's one other number that'll
So
also
let's see,
make it
walk
true.
me through what you did.
Because what happens when you take a number squared? Okay, what happens when you take a negative number squared? Does it give you a
Okay, I see
hint?
what you're saying. Well, now, here's the
It could be
thing.
positive or negative.
I understand why you added that. I'm gonna let Mr. Hofeld.
Yeah,
Because I wanna make sure that whatever I say is consistent with you.
right, okay,
They added 10.
right. They're trying to complete the square right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
But now, the question was the factor though, right?
Right, so we want you to factor. So factor is when we break it into 2 sets of parentheses. He put the number on the side, remember we take the first term times the last term, and then you put it on the side. You guys remember that process?
I'm gonna work it out, so I'm
Okay.
gonna let him talk about whether it's correct. I'm mainly focusing on
Good.
structuring the activities, but it looks really good to me.
That's good stuff. Yeah,
Are you happy with it?
yeah, that's good stuff. Okay, good. Okay,
I really like how you all worked it out step by step.
okay, so
One of the things that I look for in good
negative
math
10 over there,
applications is
because you take
kind
one
of
times a
clarity of
negative
each
10.
step. I should be able to look
Yep,
at your work
and then
and
you
follow
go
your thinking.
the numbers
Right, so you laid it out really well. Some people who are really good at math just kind of skip steps and just write the answer, but it's hard for me to figure out
Verse, right?
how you
You
got
can go
there. So
negative
thank you for
1,
walking me through.
yep, negative 2 and 5, and negative 1. But we want it to equal 3. Oh, so that's, right, so we want it to be a positive.
You know what?
So which one's it gonna be?
Square root of 10
Okay.
is not the half.
Well, if you take 2 minus 5.
Well, here's what I'll tell you. I know that your
What is
answer
that?
is similar to theirs.
Negative 3.
What I'd like to ask you
So
to
we
do
want it to be
is this.
positive.
Why don't you just meet up right
So
here,
yes,
Jose?
negative 2 and 5.
Why don't you say, or you and your group, why don't you guys kind of maybe share some ideas? All right, because it looks similar, but you guys came up.
Good. Good. Starting to get it?
Start at the top and just kind of
Oh,
compare.
you're trying to complete the square. So,
That was right, huh?
well, I'm not saying completing the square, what you're doing is wrong, but we want you to factor it. So that's where you take this number times that number, We'll put it off to the side. So that.
It's 10.
-10.
We're doing pretty good. How are we doing?
We're doing
Should
okay.
we need to get going?
Whenever you want to bring them
Okay.
back, it's
All right. So everybody up here, not bad. Factoring looked like, once we got you started on square roots, you did pretty good. Factoring, a lot of you, or some of you started to complete the square on it, right? Okay, so when Mr. Holden put these words up here, do you understand why knowing like the definitions of these and to have like a visual picture in your mind, why it would be important? Because you could complete the square on this, okay? But we wanted you to factor it. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's go to the square root problem right over here. Okay, and most of you did a great job of this once we got you redirected. We're going to treat this problem as if we were solving for x. So just imagine this without the square, and if you had x minus 9 equals 40, what would you do? Plus 9, and so that's what we're going to do here. We're going to add 9 to both sides, so we get x squared equals 49. Does that make sense? Okay. Now the trick is you have to know what undoes a square. Okay, so like if you want to undo addition, you would subtract. If you want to undo multiply, you would divide. So the question is, do you know what operation undoes a square? And some of you do, because I saw you do it. What is it? Square root. So we're going to square root both sides. So when we square root both sides, we get 7. True? Now there's a trick to that. Because remember, when we plug this number back in, we're going to square it. So does it matter if it's positive or negative? No. Because if you put in a positive 7, 7 times 7 is 49, right? If you put in a negative 7, a negative 7 times a negative 7 is 49. Do you agree? So this number, anytime you take the square root of both sides, can be plus or minus 7. Now, I also teach geometry. In algebra, that works. But in geometry, when we talk about distance, does that work? Can it be a negative 7 in terms of distance if we were measuring something? No. Okay, so in geometry, we will square root both sides, but then we have to evaluate, does this make sense for what we're trying to find? If we're trying to find a distance, negative 7 wouldn't make sense, would it? Okay, negative 7 centimeters, I don't know what that is. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, now factoring, you guys, I know, do this, and I'm going to try to teach it the way you guys do it, okay? So you guys help me out on this, okay? Because I do it a little differently, all right? But it still works, what you're doing. So you guys put negative 10 over here, is that correct? And then you write all the factors that will multiply to a negative 10, true? But,
Well, you know, I was going to ask them, I'd like to maybe get some of their voices in the room.
Okay.
If they have a specific way of doing that, I'd like to just have them at their tables, maybe just take a few seconds just to talk it out and share with each other verbally what steps they took. So you all wrote the math on your whiteboards, but I want to hear you now talk to each other and just explain. Pick one person in the table to say, here's what I did, and walk through all of the steps, being very clear. Try to use complete sentences and try to use your math vocabulary. All right. All right. Well, you know what? You didn't finish the problem. That's okay. Why don't you tell me? Let's
imagine
let's
I don't
work
know
on it
what
right
I'm
now. We could all.
So if I don't know what I'm
work on it.
doing,
She
what
doesn't
do
have
you
to do it by herself. But
to do on?
you
What are we
copied the
trying to
problem
do?
as it is. So what's the
Anybody.
next step?
Okay,
Okay.
that
Do you all
multiply
agree?
to,
Okay. So then walk us through. What are the factors of negative 10?
okay.
So
And
how
then once you do that.
So how are we
what do
going to
you do after
record
that?
this? I hear you
see,
saying it,
but I
but
want
we
you
need
to
to put it down here somewhere
So
on
once
the
you
whiteboard,
get
right?
here,
So what's a good way to
What are
record
you
all
gonna
those
do?
factors to make sure you don't miss them?
for 3x.
Just write them down, that's it.
Okay,
Let me see
good.
you write them down. Go for it. So all right?
And then
What
you
other factors
take
are you
out
gonna
what they have in common, right? And you take out what these two have in common, right? And they're both multiplied by x minus 2, now, which means you
Are those the only factors?
That makes sense? What you guys say?
Okay. Okay, so let's take 1 and negative 10. When you multiply those, okay, what do you get?
Perfect.
That's so
Yep. Right. Now, is there another
Okay,
way?
don't,
Show me how to solve it. Is there another way to get
This is
negative
mine.
10 using
I
the
have
numbers
no
1 and
clue.
10? Can,
Don't show me, talk me
Take
through
one.
it.
So what it looks like is for every pair, one of the numbers can be negative.
So you put
And
parentheses
then
around
the
the
other
other.
number can be negative.
Then why'd you put an X out there?
So, boom, there you go.
You gotta figure out what go off, what go.
So instead of 3 sets of factors, you actually have
So you
6.
see what goes into those two?
See how that works? Right?
See what goes into those two?
Well, you guys are on the
And
right.
then you take
right
it out.
track.
This one is positive, this stays positive.
Okay, good. Perfect.
Keep going.
We good?
But I want to hear you talking about how you're solving it. Tell each other what you're doing.
Did you guys already talk to Mr. Holden? No? Okay, so if you were gonna teach this to me, what would you tell me to start with? What would you-
Are you guys able to
What would you tell me
explain what you do? Okay, talk to me. Which, so Freddie, tell me what you do. Freddie.
Okay, okay. Okay. Perfect. Good. Right. And you rewrite those two because they equal that. Okay, good.
Yeah, something like that.
And then you group those and you group those, it look like. Then what you do, once you group them, what you do here?
So Freddie, first of all, your thinking is spot on.
Because they
What I
both
mean
share
is,
an X.
I'm with you 100%. I love how you're thinking. Let's talk about your language though for a second. You said you have to find the two numbers that we multiply together. What is the word
Awesome.
that
If 10 o'clock is still.
that we use when we talk about two numbers that you multiply to get another number? What is that word? What do we call those numbers? What do you say? Factors. Okay. So here's the thing. We're going to get back to Mr. Hofelt right now, but in the future, when you're explaining that, I want you to say we need to find the factors of negative 10, not the two numbers. You see what I mean? Right, because they're factors, right? Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Okay, we still on time? We good?
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
Okay, you know what's cool is, like some of you guys were better at explaining than others, but basically what we're asking you to do is be a teacher, teach us. Okay, so, but what I noticed was, and I'm gonna go quicker because we already came around to the rooms. So you guys came up with 5 and negative 2. You listed all the factors of 10, right? All the numbers that multiply to negative 10, and there were 4 of them, right? Okay, some of you did this. Some of you went x squared plus 5x minus 2x minus 10 equals 0. But then some of you switched these around, and you still got the same answer, so it really doesn't matter the order you put these in, does it? Okay, now, you group these two together. Do we group the negative in the parentheses? Okay, group those two together. Take out what these have in common, right? They have x. So then you got x plus 5. And then this is where I'm a little tricked up. If this number's negative, then do you put a positive out here? Or do you put a negative out here? Negative? Okay. Now, what's left inside? Negative 2, x plus 5, okay? Because we took out a negative and we took out a 2, right? So if we double check ourselves, a negative 2 times x is a negative 2x. A negative 2 times 5 is a negative 10. We good so far? Both of these are multiplied by x plus 5, aren't they? So we can put these two together before we multiply by x plus 5. Now what? Once we get here, this is one thing we didn't have on our board, but it might be important. Do you guys know what this is called when we split it up? I'll give you a hint. It starts with 0. zero product property. The zero product property says if this is 0, 0 times this is 0, right? If this is 0, 0 times this would be 0. So we set each part equal to 0. And then we solve. Because I'm reviewing for the test in my class, and we say solve by factoring, and so then you know how to solve by factoring. But then the test question says solve using the zero product property, which is also factoring. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay. All right, good.
All right, so guys, here's what I want you to do. Before we move on to the next step, Mr. Hofield just talked about and introduced the zero product property, okay? I want you to take about 30 to 45 seconds at your table and just do your best to explain what you believe the zero product property is, okay? So go ahead and start talking at your table, and we're going to come around and ask some questions, listening to your
The
language.
answer to the zero
All right?
property. Okay, what does it mean?
Okay, you think it's a problem that equals to 0?
Here's really what it
Do
says.
you agree? Okay. So
Multiply
explain to
together, and
me
they have to
how
equal
Mr.
zero, right?
Hofield's solution
One of those
illustrates
numbers
the
is
zero
0.
product property.
If this was 0, then 0 times whatever this is would be 0, correct? Or if this was, this times 0 would be 0.
Explain the zero product.
Okay.
Explain how it illustrates the zero product property. I agree with you that it's at the 0, but can you be more specific? What is the part that adds to 0?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, what's a zero product property mean? Is Mr. Holden already over here? Okay.
Okay. So do you feel that
communication-
if you write it out, the equation, that you can
What's the
understand?
zero
you can
product
show me
property mean?
using the numbers what the
Zero
zero
product
product property is? It's just hard to say it.
What does it mean?
Yeah.
Okay. You could do
We have
that?
two numbers.
Okay. I want to
They're
get to
gonna
the point, not today, but I want to get to the point
They're
that
gonna
you
equal zero.
can actually describe the zero
What does
product
that mean?
property.
What do you know about one
So
of
we're
the
going to make
numbers?
that a goal. Okay.
It has to be 0. That's the zero.
Can you guys
product
explain
property.
the zero product property?
That's it. If I've got two numbers, I don't know what they are, they multiply to 0. What'd you tell me? One of them has to be, so this one could be 0, or this one could be 0, right?
Okay.
And that is why split those up. So it's x minus 2 equals 0.
Right. And
x
if
plus
x
5
equals
equals
2,
Because either one of them can be
the
0.
answer will be 0, right? And if x equals
Cool.
negative 5, the answer
Can you
will
repeat that
be
back to
0.
me?
So it seems to have
Anybody?
something to do with the solution set,
You know, Daniel.
right? The set of possible
So there's two numbers.
responses,
One of them has to be 0.
This
So
is
is
something
that
I
each
think
one
that
equal
Mr.
to
Harder's
0?
going to
We'll find out.
explore more, okay? I just
that
wanted to
make
kind of
sense?
see how well you understood it right now, to tell Mr. Harder if he needs to go back over it tomorrow, or if you totally have it. And I think that he needs to go back
Okay.
over it, okay?
Tell me what the
All
zero
right.
product property means real quick.
Everything equals 0.
What? Everything? What if you have two numbers, right? So here's my two numbers, and they equal 0. What do you know about one of those numbers?
What is that?
No, they're not.
They both equal 0?
Yeah.
Do they have to both equal 0? No. If this is 0, does it matter what this is?
No.
0 times this is going to be 0. And if this is 0, does it matter?
So
what
guys,
this
here's
is?
the deal.
0 times this
Any
equals
number
0.
times
That's the
0,
zero
what's the
product
answer?
property.
0.
Okay?
And that's what
That's
the
why
zero
in
product
math, a lot of
property
times we want everything
Okay.
equal to 0.
So,
when we solve
What's the zero
quadratics.
product property?
Okay? Cool.
Anything times 0
That's good.
is 0. Good. Okay, good. All right. All right. That explanation was clear to
Hi.
me,
Yeah,
as long as,
you got two numbers.
yep,
One of, if they equal 0, one of them's got to be 0. Yeah.
I like that. All right. Ladies, boys and girls, can we have your attention up here on the screen, please? All right. so far, this was our chance to get to know you as students, to see what you already know about math, and just to figure out how we should proceed for the rest of the period. Here are the learning targets for the rest of the day. There are 3 things that we want you to be able to do by the end of the period. Number 1 is solve a quadratic equation using a new formula. It's called the quadratic formula. All right, I believe today is the first day, so you haven't learned it yet. So even though you don't know it, our goal is for you to use it by the end of the day. The second goal is to use that formula in a real world situation. Here's what happens in math a lot is you're working out equations, but they're just numbers and variables, and you're just working them out. And that's good, but what we want you to see is how we use those equations in the real world. So later we're going to give you a real world situation where we need your mathematical skills to help us solve a real problem. And then we also want you to communicate like a mathematician. We want to hear more of your math language. I know many of you feel comfortable working out the math on paper or on whiteboards, but we want to hear you speaking about the math a little bit more, okay? And we're going to encourage that. All right. This is called a conversation roundtable. I need you all to get your...
I put a white piece of paper on their desk.
Okay.
Is that, or do
Yeah.
you want me to do something else?
No, white piece of paper, yeah. So get the paper that's on your desk.
So I put it, if you need another sheet because you wrote on it, that's fine, I have one here. Anyone? Okay,
Can we just do it on these whiteboards?
and that's okay if you wrote on it.
Oh, do you want to draw this?
Yeah.
Okay. You know what, boys and girls? Hey, what's your name? I don't see your name tag.
Taina.
Tiana?
Taina.
Taina? Taina has an excellent suggestion that we didn't even think of. Since you have whiteboards, if you want to draw this graphic on the whole whiteboard,
That'll work,
yeah, and let me see yours. Can I hold that up for a second?
it's a good idea.
Yeah, if you want to create this graphic just like this, it's even better. Okay, thank you, Taina. So I'll give you 30 seconds to create this graphic. The conversation roundtable works like this. One, do you see this top left section? We're going to ask you a question and give you about 30 seconds to think. In those 30 seconds, you write your own thoughts here. All right, so it's silently, you're just thinking. Then we're going to go around the table and you're going to share your ideas. So for example, is it Kaya? Okay, so when Kaya shares, Freddie's going to write Kaya's answers here. You don't have, not word for word, you're just going to write some big ideas that she says. And then when, is it Elton? Then when Elton speaks, Freddie's going to write Elton's ideas here. And then, what's your name? Asha. Then when Asha speaks, Freddie's going to write Asha's ideas down there. So what's going to happen is everyone's going to share, and when people share, you write your classmates' ideas in their own section.
So we just pass the board?
No. So here's how it'll work. Let me see yours for a second. Okay. Let me model this, but let me model it with something else. Okay. Let's do a practice. I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to write down your own answer in this area. So let's make it easy for this modeling. What is the best dessert? Okay. After dinner, what's the best dessert? Okay. All right. No, don't say it.
Don't say it, write it.
Just write it right here. Okay. Don't write it. I mean, don't say it. Just write it.
Just write it down.
Just write it down.
Whatever you think your best dessert is.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Just write it in this area here. Just write it in this area here. Okay.
Does it have to be a food?
No.
Okay, okay.
It has to be a food.
It doesn't have to be a food.
Well, Mr. Hofeld, I don't know what you eat for dessert, but I mean, I eat.
Her best dessert is sleeping.
Okay, well,
A reward.
yeah, let's make it food. Okay.
Okay,
Let's make it
okay.
food. All right. So now watch this, boys and girls. Watch this. I'm going to model this at our table. So I wrote chocolate cake. So watch this. Kaya, how did you answer the question?
I said cookie dough.
Excuse me?
I said cookie dough.
Kaya says cookie dough ice cream. So over here, I'm going to write Kaya's name,
Oh,
and then I'm going to write cookie dough ice cream.
I got it.
Great. Okay. Now I'm going to go over to Elton. Elton, what did you say is your answer?
Cake.
All right. And Elton says cake. And now I can even follow up and say, Elton, can you be more specific? Is there a type of cake you like?
Just any.
Okay. Elton doesn't care any. And then I go over to Asha and I'll say, Asha, what do you like?
Chocolate fudge cake.
Chocolate fudge cake?
Could you be more
Okay.
specific?
And now, boys and girls, did you see how we all share and we wrote each other's answers down?
Yeah.
Okay? And now in the middle, I'm going to look at what I wrote down and try to come up with some type of summary or some type of answer. So now I see chocolate cake, cookie dough ice cream, cake, and chocolate fudge cake. So I can say that 3 of the 4 like cake. Is that a true statement?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I could even say 2 of us prefer chocolate. Do you see that? Okay, do you see how that works?
Oh, you have to
So
bake
boys
it.
and girls, that's what we're going to do, but we're going to do it with a math question.
Does that make
Mr.
sense, guys?
Mr. Hofelt is going to project a Desmos parabola, and we're going to ask you a question about that. Okay?
How do I get out of this?
Yeah, escape.
Okay.
Yeah, and
All right.
I didn't close
Perfect.
anything.
Good.
It's up there. Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So,
All right.
So go ahead and erase my answers. Freddie, erase my
I'm
answers.
even going to help you out here a little bit.
Stop.
I'm going to do this. And I'm going to help you out a little more. And do that. Now, I just want to explain what I did before we ask the question. Okay? I graphed y equals x squared plus 5x minus 10. That's in red. Correct? And I also graphed y equals 0. The blue line. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm going to leave this up to Mr. Holden to give us the $1 million question.
I will in a second. Let me just make sure I accurately do this so people in the back can see a little bit better.
Okay. And if I need to zoom in the graph, I can do that. You
Okay.
guys need to
And
see the
then-
graph better, or are you good?
Am I writing both of
Good.
these, Mr. Hofelt? Am I writing both of these? Y
Yeah,
equals 0?
so what I'm trying to simulate here by putting y equals 0 is that if we had 0 equals x squared plus 5x minus 10, where do they intersect? Okay? We're going to stay in here. If you normally take a break, we're going to stay in here and treat it like a block class. Does that make sense?
We'll do a stretch break
Like
in a
next,
second.
yeah, okay.
So boys and girls, here is the question. Mr. Hofelt gave you the equations and has a graph, and notice he also showed you exactly where the parabola crosses the x-axis. Okay? Here's the question that I want you to answer on your own first in this area first by yourself. Is this equation factorable? Yes or no, and why? Okay, why? If you think it's yes, then why do you think yes? If it's no, why do you think no? All right, take a few seconds, and if you need to come up here and look at the graph, feel free to come on up. Is the equation factorable? Yes or no? Answer by yourself first, and then we're going to have a table discussion.
Oh,
Oh, what happened?
I don't know.
Is it just you go to sleep?
Oh, yep, they went to sleep. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Scared me. Is this equation factorable? all those equations that you factored in the past, think about what you noticed about the answers. And you're just writing down yes or no. Is that right? Or are we
And
writing
why.
more than that? And why?
The why. The why is the most important
Okay.
part.
Yes or no, and why? And you may not be sure, so make a guess.
I like how you're starting here. You have your answer and then you're explaining why. That's exactly what we want.
That's good. I like how you wrote why. Perfect.
Now, you guys are going to have a conversation in a second. I want you to write your own thoughts first, okay? All right,
So is it factorable?
so write your own thoughts first.
And then why?
Can you all see where the line crosses the x-axis? Can you see that? Okay. Can you all see where the line crosses the x-axis?
Dang it. Sorry. I was standing in front of the camera and I was stretching, so all they're seeing right now is I wasn't even paying attention. Oh, that's funny. That's good stuff.
All right. You know what I like here? I like that you're using your math vocabulary in this one, okay? I'm not
Do you
saying
want
it's
them to
right
go
or
to the
wrong.
next person then, or?
Well, no.
Okay.
So boys and girls, if once everyone has written their answer, what we'll do is now we'll take turns going around the table, sharing your answer. Here's your job. Write down the first name of the person and just kind of what they said, like their answer, yes or no. And if they gave you any reasons, kind of try to write down their reasons. You don't have to write every word, but just like some key words, some key math vocabulary that they use, all right? So why don't we start here and then go around, okay? All right? Why don't we start here, and then you go next and you go next. All right?
Here's how I
Why don't we start with you, and then go over
Some of you
here.
didn't write anything
All
down.
right, why don't we start with you?
And this is new, so you're gonna struggle.
Hi,
Okay?
this
You're
is
trying, and I
me,
appreciate
All
it.
right.
Freddie, and
Why
this
don't we
is
start here,
What?
and then go around
What
clockwise.
and this is
What has to happen for
And
it
All
to
right,
be
go
back?
for it.
That's
yeah.
so we just got done factoring in problem on the board, over there on the blackboard, right?
Just say it, whatever you say.
What, if we're asking the question, is this equation factorable? You can look at the graph, but even if you don't understand off of the graph,
I can like beatbox.
what must
Now,
be
did you
true
hear her?
for it?
Okay, you're talking to them.
Yes, because there's a 5 and a 10 and they put
There's
two
always, matter of fact, we know that these
Now,
are the
if you guys
solutions.
agree with her,
Right.
you could let her know. If you disagree, or if you have a
You see
different
how-
answer, that's
when
okay.
you factor,
All right?
did you get numbers like a negative 6.531?
If you don't understand what she's saying, then
1.531
you have to
when you
ask her to
factor.
clarify that, okay?
You did when you factored? What? Once? Okay. Most of the time, are
Who's Alex? Alex, so Alex says yes, but why did he say
So
yes?
we want you to be able to talk about that. Does that make sense?
Okay,
Okay.
then right guess. Okay, what was your guess based on, Alex? Okay, now what do you think? Did you all share?
Okay, so did you guys?
Okay.
Would you, yes,
I
because.
see, okay. Now, did you all look at where the graph crosses the x-axis?
It's a good description.
does it
I
cross the
understand
axis?
exactly what you're saying. Here's my thought process. Here's what I would because something has a solution in your mind, that means it's factorable.
Can you see the specific point where it crosses?
What does it take to fact? What do we have to have? Like, if we just look,
So,
if we
you just told me you could see it, so if you can't see it
If we
here,
looked
stand
up
on
there,
up. Why don't you go over
we
there and
want
look at it?
two numbers that
There's a bunch of
multiply to
information
negative
over there.
10.
If you don't see all the information, you're gonna miss out on
to
it,
five,
okay?
right?
So can you, here, let's go. We're big
Negative
truck.
2 and 5 don't
All right.
subtract 5. They subtract a 3, don't they?
So you go up there.
Does that make sense?
So the same thing as this,
-2 plus 5 is still 3. Are we getting it to be 5?
Yeah.
Said,
Okay, so here, look.
probably wrong.
Okay,
Because
where does it,
because the Y
okay,
is in front
Kind of
and where does this one cross the
He
x-axis?
doesn't want me to explain this shit.
Those,
And that's why I want to explain.
would you say those are easy numbers
we could
to
try one
do
at a
math
time.
with or difficult numbers to do math
They don't subtract.
with? Okay, you say difficult, why is that?
Two, five,
Okay, so what does that suggest to you in terms of factorability?
a factor that must happen.
no, because the Y
Does that make sense?
Is it gonna be easy to factor numbers that end in decimal like that, or is it gonna be harder?
Example of explaining yourself. Well, that's because that's really
So
what
what do you think? Do you think
we're
it's
not
gonna be
looking for right or
factorable?
wrong. We're looking, can you explain yourself mathematically? You did that.
So what's the reason though?
Okay, you guys are struggling over here a little
Well,
bit,
not
aren't
it's a
you?
decimal, you're right, because
All
it
right, that's okay.
crosses
This
the
is new.
x-axis.
Right here.
At the point at which it crosses the x-axis.
Is
So
this
look,
equation
the point
factorable?
at which it crosses the
Okay.
x-axis.
So what I did
Is a decimal. You see what I
graph
mean?
of it.
I mean, you're
Of the
right,
equation,
it
right?
is a decimal, but I'm
And
always
you
looking
see
for a
where the
complete
blue
sentence.
line
Okay, all right, now you
crosses
guys going
the
back,
red line.
okay?
So that -6.531 and that 1.531, you guys have used decimals before. That's where it crosses
You
the
guys
x-axis.
had the conversation.
Mr. Harder said you guys
Now,
know
in the
those are the
center, what
solutions.
you're doing is you
True.
are,
So those are the solutions, -6.
well, first of all, do you all agree or you disagree or what?
Okay, and maybe we're throwing you off a little
Okay,
bit here by
so in the
showing
center,
you
you
a
might
graph,
kind of
asking you,
groups
is it
consensus,
factorable?
okay?
But think back to the problem we did over there. What did
But now,
we
someone in
do
the group,
to
by
solve
calling
that?
someone, you're gonna have to be able to explain, like, your thinking, okay?
We looked for two numbers that multiplied to -10 and did what? Combined to,
Okay, what'd you guys get?
you're trying for me. You guys are quiet as all get out. Multiply to 10 and combine to,
Okay. So when we say does a number go into it,
are there two numbers that multiply to 10
divisibility,
and combine
right,
to
is
5?
it divisible by?
Maybe you're right.
So can you say that again, but use the word divisibility. Or divisible.
Okay?
Right. And now the other way to say it too is also use the word factors, right? So can you say what you're thinking, but using the word factors? Well, you're looking
Who's
for,
Elton? That's good stuff right there, man.
okay.
Did you do
no,
that by
No,
yourself?
because you can't
No,
factor
he
it.
helped you. You
Okay,
did that by
good,
yourself.
good.
He didn't
So
help.
just, first of all, again, your thinking is amazing. I mean, keep thinking that way. But the
you know
mathematicians
what?
use the words
I like that you
factorable,
explained.
factors, divisible,
Like that?
divisibility,
Use
something
that
like that,
for me.
right?
You
Okay,
did
and
that
that's
by
what,
yourself too?
okay.
Okay, good. Okay.
All right, let's go over it one.
All right, so this might be a little confusing, but Mr. Harder said you guys have used decimals before, right? Yeah. And so this might have confused you a little bit, but with my algebra classes, I put y = 0 in because when we factor, it's equal to 0 instead of y. So when I put 0 there, I have 0 = x² plus 5x minus 10. Okay, so don't let that throw you. But what do these two numbers represent right here? They are the x what? When they cross the x-axis, what are they called? You call them zero axis? Close. Not y-intercept. The y-intercept is up and down. What? X-intercepts. So these are the x-intercepts. These are when this crosses the x-axis. Okay, and these are the solutions. Does that make sense? So what we asked you is, based on the solutions, looking at these numbers, we asked, can you guys recognize whether it's factorable or not? That's basically what we're asking. Some of you put yes, some of you put no. Dakota, I thought, I don't want to embarrass you, but I thought you explained yourself really well. Even though you didn't have the right answer, you said you said based on what you know right now, and this is what we're looking for, you said this has solutions, and so it's factorable. There's nothing wrong with that. He explained why he believed what he believed. Does that make sense? Okay, Freddie and, is it
Elton.
Elton? You guys did a great job of explaining yourself. Because you put no, because you might have looked at the graph, but then you remembered what you thought about factoring. And you know that two numbers have to multiply to -10 and combine to 5. So they put no, because there are no numbers that multiply to -10 and combine to 5. Because if you go 1 and 10, -1 and 10, we get 9. If you go -10 and 1, we get -9. The other numbers that multiply to 10 are 2 and 5. Well, -2 and 5 make 3. -5 and 2 make -3. So they said no, because no numbers that multiply to 10 combine to 5. Does that make sense? Are you good there? Okay.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, what we're gonna do is,
Oh, I was going to say one more thing. And I love how you're trying, because I'll be honest, in my algebra classes, I don't do this stuff. And I need to start doing it next year. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I'm finding that when you understand math and you can communicate it, it'll make the writing part easy. Okay?
yeah. Guys, I echo what Mr. Hofeld's saying. You guys are doing an outstanding job working with some of the new strategies that we're doing today. So I just appreciate you all cooperating. Here's what we're going to do. I want everyone to erase their whiteboard, and I want you to, after you've done erasing it, stand up, okay? And when it's clean, then what we're going to do is put them back. I believe they're over here, right? Okay, all right. So everyone, I want you to stand up, take a stretch break. All right, in an orderly fashion, put them back. Try to put them back neatly. Okay, put them back neatly. And Mr. Hopel,
Yeah.
just so I'm clear, what time?
And I can be pretty quick, but we get out of here at 10:01.
10:01?
10:01.
Okay, we're good.
Okay, good.
We're good.
10:01.
So, Mr. Hopel, we're about to go into the doodle nut, solving it. But there's no volume.
I don't know why.
Hey.
Wait, hold on. Where's your speakers? Are they turned up?
Oh, that wasn't turned up. Okay. There you go.
If we see something out of the door,
Should work.
got up,
There you go.
like,
But it should ping.
and then like, oh. I started laughing. I was like, we were all just laughing. It was mostly it was like 4 girls.
It's all the way up.
Tickle my ears.
It shouldn't. Whatever it's about, it shouldn't.
It's a mic here.
I have these same speakers, so they're
Well, we'll do it without the audio then. Okay. All right. Yeah, it's okay. All right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get started in 30 seconds.
How do you record? I don't know. Hello? he really just gave me the whole thing. Yeah.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go over a way to take notes in math. Well, actually, in any subject, but because it's math, we're going to focus on math. But I want to tell you something. When I was a student, I struggled with notes because what would happen is I would copy information from the board. Later, I would get home, look at my notes, and I would try to make sense of my notes. I would try to basically be the teacher and redo the lesson in my mind, and I couldn't do it because my notes weren't good. I didn't remember why I wrote something down. I didn't remember exactly what the teacher said at that moment. Has that ever happened to you where you look at your notes and it's hard to make sense of what you wrote? Raise your hand if that's happened to you. Okay, several of you feel that way. I want to show you a system that I use personally that my daughter uses. As a matter of fact, I'm going to show you a video of my 9-year-old daughter taking notes. The audio is not working for some reason, but I can tell you what it is. Here's a little something you need to know. My daughter is named after Wonder Woman. Okay, so Wonder Woman's real name, she's fictional, but in the comic books, her real name is Diana, and my daughter's name is Diana. She was named after Wonder Woman. So, and she loves it. So you're going to see her, I think she's wearing her Wonder Woman robe. You're going to see like a Wonder Woman piggy bank on her desk. I mean, so she's got lots of Wonder Woman stuff. Okay, her room is all Wonder Woman. But these are called doodle notes. And I want to explain, a doodle is just a drawing. Have you ever been sitting around taking your pencil and just draw a picture for random reasons? Those are doodles. But there's a way to use that art to help make sense of information. So I want you to watch what she's going to do in the video. So everyone take a look up here. Can you see? Okay. All right. Let me It's okay. What are these doodle notes on?
They're how planes work.
All right. Okay. Let's see what you got.
First, these are the parts.
Okay.
The cockpit, the turbine engine, ailerons, rudders, elevators, and the fuselage.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So what are you going to do with that vocabulary doodle note?
Well, it's good.
Okay.
Okay.
Where do you want to put it? Put it right there?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, good. All right, so what other doodle notes do you have?
This is how the plane works.
Okay, explain
So
that
the
to me.
plane moves super fast. And also the wing is shaped a certain way that the air pressure or the air pressure on top of the wing decreases. Then the high pressure on the bottom lifts the plane into the sky. Yeah.
Okay.
And then this is the picture of it. That's like the plane, and these are each of the wings.
Mm-hmm.
Then these lines are like the air pressure.
Okay.
Since it's moving super fast.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna put it like that. Okay. The last ones are these key words or key vocabulary.
Mm-hmm.
So the yaw is when you're turning a plane.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if this glue stick was turning it like this.
Mm-hmm.
The lift is when the plane is in the air, like the lift.
Mm-hmm.
The pitch is when a plane climbs or descends, which means it goes down or up.
So did you see how for everything she wanted to share, she wrote it on like some type of cartoon kind of paper? Do you see that? And she chose how she wanted to represent her thoughts. And then she glued it in her notebook. And she does that for all of her notes. Take a look here though on the screen. This is an example of doodle notes in a science class, where you can see where they took a sheet of paper, divided it into three, and they used colors and drew pictures to make it look really attractive. Okay, do you see that? So they used art, but it wasn't just drawing just to draw, it was drawing to make sense of the information. Now, here's another example that's a little plainer, but still, I want you at your tables, discuss what did the student do in this math class to help make sense of the information. Okay, this is a lesson on evaluating expressions. But what types of things did the students do to add some art to it to make sense of it? Talk at your tables about what you see.
What'd they do?
What they do? But so what are some of the artistic pieces to these notes?
She makes boxed stuff.
So like
Organizes it. And then what else?
Okay, so made a table,
I think you said highlight.
and what else?
And what do you think they highlighted?
Right, but how? How did this student make it easier?
What'd you say, guys?
Right. So what did she draw?
Specifically, what did they highlight? Like, did they just
What did she do to the title? Okay, gave a fancy border around the title, right?
And
So to highlight it.
I
Okay.
think she
To me, it
highlights
looks like, well, you can.
Right, highlights keywords. Okay. All right. What else?
So the key concepts, like how, like in pink and my, I can't see everything.
Right. Box examples,
But it looks to
and
me
then
like
look over
the
here.
work and how to do it.
Remember PEMDAS. You guys familiar with PEMDAS? Right. So it seems.
What'd you say, boys?
Do you see anything? Is there anything else or?
Okay, specifically
No?
what they
Okay.
highlighted.
But now, are these notes
Yellow
easier to
words.
read than the notes that you normally take?
And then in pink,
Yeah? Okay. So this is what we're talking about. It doesn't have to look like that. It can just look like this, but we want to do something special to the notes, okay?
good.
All right.
I heard some good stuff.
Okay.
I heard yellow, like keywords, is that we couldn't see real well back there?
Yeah.
And then in pink, I don't know if this is right or not, but we said in pink, that was kind of the work, the examples?
Yeah.
Is that what, okay.
Yeah. So boys and girls, there's no one perfect way to do doodle notes. But what I want to show you is that there's different colors. Sometimes there's highlighting. Sometimes there's different shapes. There's borders. And they're all to draw attention to the important information. What is going to happen is Mr. Hofeld's going to give you some new information. He's going to teach you about a formula. And what we're going to do is we're going to take notes. I'm going to take notes here while Mr. Hofeld is teaching on the whiteboard, okay? And then we're going to pause and we're going to talk about the information. You guys got that? Yeah. Okay. So while we get set up, I'm going to, actually I'm just going to close this real quick. We can turn the lights back on.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm going to distribute this. All right. Each of you guys get, don't write anything yet. Here, don't write anything yet. Don't write anything yet. Okay? Don't write yet.
Ah, didn't want that.
Don't write anything yet, okay? I mean, you can take one, but don't write anything yet. Can you just put a few colored pencils on every table, please? Okay. Yeah, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
You guys gonna pass those around? Thanks. Perfect. Oh, go ahead.
Just like 4 or 5.
Get up, twin.
Okay.
She has a sister that looks exactly like her.
All right. So boys and girls, don't do anything. Don't do anything yet. Here's what's going to happen. I want you to follow Mr. Hofeld. I'm going to take notes, but then we're going to pause and we're going to put notes into a different format, and you're going to help me. Okay? All right, whenever
Ready?
you're ready. Yeah.
Okay. We good? All right. So you guys have recognized the form before, standard form of quadratic equation, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Is that true? Have you seen that? Be honest with me. I don't know. Have you seen ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 before? Okay. What are a, b, and c? What do they represent? What do a, b, and c represent? They're variables that represent, what do variables represent? A number. They represent numbers, right? Yes? Okay. Now, if we try to factor this, you said that we would look for two numbers that multiply to -10. Is that true? Yes? And so I'm going to do this quick because you've done this. These are the numbers that multiply to -10. True? Do any of those numbers combine to 5? Do 1 and -10 combine to 5?
No.
Do -1 and 10 combine to 5?
No.
2 and -5? -5 and 2. -2 plus 5 is 3, isn't it? So they don't combine to 5, right? You agree? Okay, so this is unfactorable. When you have something that's unfactorable, we have a cure. Like, matter of fact, this is like anything that has a solution. This is a cure. Like if I create, well, this would be like you said for AIDS, okay? This would be like the math cure for all quadratics. So this would be like, this is a big deal because it's like a cure for AIDS that we don't have yet, right? Okay, you follow what I'm saying? But this is the, he said it, so I thought, I'm sorry.
No,
okay.
it's all right. Mm-hmm.
But this is for sure, right here. This is for sure. This will work on anything that has a solution. And it's called the quadratic formula, okay? So the quadratic formula, and I use a song to remember it. So I'm a little nervous because, unfortunately, I should cover up my mic because I don't want to hear people hear me sing, but I'm going to do it anyway. You ready? Okay. I had to get my voice warmed up. Sorry. You're going to sing it after me. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
You ready? Here's the formula, and this is a good way to remember it. X equals, listen, X equals -b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I added that little, I was like trying, okay. Again, x equals -b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I got two boys. I got an 8th grade son and a 10th grade son, right? And unfortunately, I get in the car and they want to switch the channel on me and listen to all these crazy rap songs and all that crap. And they know the word to every song. And I'm like, I can't even understand one word. Okay? Yeah, I got to switch the song and all that stuff. Song is a good way to remember stuff.
So Mr. Hofeld, let me make sure I understand this. You're saying that X equals,
X is the solution.
right, -b, that's this term right here, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all of that over 2a. Is that it? So is this how you say
That's
it?
the quadratic formula.
Okay.
That's how you say it. Now,
Okay.
that doesn't mean anything to us unless we know what A, B, and C are. But if we know what A, B, and C are, you guys with me here? It's warm in here. Okay? If you know what A, B, and C are, then we're golden. So the reason I directed you to this, and the reason I put this above, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, you told me A, B, and C are variables, and variables represent numbers, right? So if we look at x squared plus 5x minus 10 equals 0, what conclusions can you draw about A? This is the toughest one, because there's no number there. What number's there if there's no number there?
1. 0.
I always have my kids say 0, but it's actually what? 1. 1. So we could put a 1 there. So A is 1. What's B? 5. B is 5. And what's C? C is negative 10.
Okay. So in the equation, x squared plus 5x
X minus 10.
minus 10, you're saying that
And it equals
A
0. Yep.
is 1, B is
5.
5, and C equals negative 10?
Correct.
Okay, so let's pause for a quick second. So boys and girls, this is the point where there's been a lot of information shared, and you could easily just copy everything that Mr. Hofeld has written, or you could copy what I've written, but notes are more meaningful when you've taken what we've shared with you and recoded them or put them in your own thinking, your own words. So here's what I want to do with you right now. Would you all take your notes page? There's nothing on it yet. So up at the very top, you see where I'm pointing right here? Up at the very top, I want to give our notes a title, all right? What is this lesson about? What is Mr. Hofeld talking about at this moment? Right on,
Perfect.
right on. So boys and girls, in this top part right here, I want you to write quadratic formula, okay? And you know what I think I'll do is I think I'm going to try to recreate this really quickly.
Quadratic formula. Quadratic formula. Good. When are you going to sing that song, Mr. Holden?
All right. Yeah. All right.
See how he's having fun with it? He's like making outlines. He's coloring them in a little bit. Yes?
Yeah. I'm not that great of an artist, but I was trying to make a kind of a cool title.
You get the idea, right?
All right. So quadratic formula goes in there. So now, boys and girls, what is the quadratic formula? Okay, he gave it to you. He sang it a couple of times. But what is the quadratic formula?
What does it do?
Well, no. I mean, right now I'm just asking, like, what is it?
Oh.
Like in other words, what are the letters and numbers? What are the
Okay.
variables? What is the actual formula? Say it.
Nice.
Go for it.
I got a candy bar for you later. Oh, wait. We can't give candy in school.
All
I got a candy bar for you later in my classroom.
right. So I can't see your name tag. What's your name?
Arnold.
Arnold, beautiful. Arnold said, okay, you want to finish it?
Can
I'll
you
sing
sing
it with
it?
you. I'll sing it with you. Okay, you ready? X equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Right, okay, beautiful.
Perfect.
All right, so here's the thing. Arnold, this is the quadratic formula. This is the actual formula. This is the most important thing. Boys and girls, we need to put this on our notes page somewhere where it's highlighted, somewhere where it's clear that this is super important. Where do you guys want to put it? Okay. So, are you guys thinking? You think it's somewhere in here? Huh?
Is it like the most important? What?
So here, this is what I want you to do right here, guys. In the center, write the phrase quadratic formula. Okay? I really like what you're doing here. You're taking the colored pencils and adding some flair to it. Okay? All right, so boys and girls, in this graphic, we've got 4 rectangles where we can add information about the quadratic formula. So where's a good place to put the actual formula? In square 1, 2, 3, or 4?
4.
Like right here?
Because it's like the last one.
Okay, you want to put it here? How many of you want to put it here? Okay. How many of you want to put it over here in the top right? Here's the beautiful thing, boys and girls. You can put it wherever you want, okay? So I'm recommending that you put it in one of these 4 squares, but this is what you're putting. You're putting this entire formula somewhere in that square. Can I hold yours up for a second?
Yeah.
What's your name?
Jordan.
Jordan. Guys, take a look at what Jordan's doing right now. Jordan is adding a little bit of color, and it looks decorative, but you could also use color for a specific reason. For example, anything that I find super important, I choose a color to represent super important. What's a good color that says, hey, this is super important? Yellow. You like yellow? Then yours would be yellow. But other people have different colors that mean super important, right? So who has a different color that would represent something as super important?
Red. Orange.
Okay, who said orange? Okay, so I don't care what color you make it, but go ahead and put the formula in a box. Okay,
Any box.
any box. Okay,
Any box.
put the formula right there.
Put the formula in there. In any box.
Okay, good.
Then make sure
You're
you put
good.
the formula in one of these boxes.
Okay. All right. Now, boys and girls, do you remember the song is actually just how you would say this? I think it would be really important for you to have the words to describe the quadratic formula. So I wrote them out right here. Do you see this? Everyone, take a look up here real quick. Do you see this? Okay, so here's what I want to know. Where on your paper would it be good to actually write out the words to the quadratic formula? Well, you know what? Here's the thing. These are your doodle notes. So if you want to put them there, that's fine. The vocabulary box is mainly intended for like individual words, okay? But where would be a good place to actually write the words to the quadratic formula?
You got one of those other squares.
The 3 other boxes.
I think I would like to write mine here. X equals negative b.
Plus or minus.
Negative
Now you're
B.
starting to sing it, see?
plus or minus
Square root.
the square root of what?
B squared minus 4AC.
B squared minus minus 4ac all over 2a. So one of the things that I'm doing with my doodle notes is not only am I coloring, not only am I putting information in a graphic, but you could also write words. If the teacher says something that you feel is really important, you could just actually write those words down too, okay? So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared or ac all over 2a. There's going to be times where your teacher's going to ask you, what is the quadratic formula? And you have to be able to say it clearly. And you'll have the formula, but you'll also have the words to describe the formula, okay? All right, good. So you're doing that. Can you write the words up there? Yeah, okay. Good. Good. Okay, now boys and girls, there is a place do you all see here where there's like a star? Like there's 3 stars? All right. One of the ways that I like to use those stars is for super key ideas, important ideas. I'm going back over what Mr. Hofelt said earlier. He said when you have an unfactorable equation, the quadratic formula will always work. That seems kind of important to me. Does that seem important to you? That the quadratic formula always works? Yeah. Yeah? So if that's an important piece of information, where should it go in our notes? Where would you like to put it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to put it in the stars, you can put it in the stars, or you could put it in one of these boxes. The point is, you can put it anywhere you want, okay? But what I'm going to do, I can't make it really great, but I'm going to put it right here. I'm going to say, will always work, okay? All right. Let's see. Oh, look at this. He gave you an example problem. Mr. Hofeld gave you an example problem. He gave you x squared plus 5x minus 10, and then he told you all of the what all the variables represented, right? Where would it be a good place to put an example problem? Asha, where did you say? Okay, you want to put it in one of the boxes? Okay, so does it matter which box? No? Okay, so you want to put it here? Okay, so what was it? It was x squared
Plus 5x.
plus 5x minus 10 equals 0.
Yep.
And he said A equals 1, B equals 5, and C equals negative 10. All right, so that's a good example problem. Okay. Now, we're not done. Mr. Hofeld has more information to share with you. But as we continue, I'm going to pause from time to time and ask you where we think information should go. While he's talking and you're listening, the other thing that you could do, too, is take your colored pencil just to add a little bit of highlight to some of your notes. Okay?
Okay, we ready?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we identified A.
Here, I'll move this.
Okay. We identified A, we identified B, we identified C, correct? What do you think we're going to do with those numbers? So this would be like the first step, identifying A, B, and C, right? What do you think we're going to do with those once we know this is the formula? Where do you think we're going to plug those numbers in? A, B, and C into the, where? Into the formula, right? Now, I don't know where you want me to do it, but I was going to do it over here. But really, I could leave a blank spot there and put in the number. I could leave a blank spot there, put in the number, that's B. A blank spot, put in the numbers, right? And then 2A. Does that make sense? So in other words, the outline of what I have looks like this. Doesn't it look like that if I leave out the A, B, and C? Okay, so what is, this is B, so what goes there? 5. I should use a different color marker. Getting me into this color thing now. 5, right? Okay, and if I was really cool, I would use blue for 5. So you said B is 5. Does that make sense? Okay. What's A? 1. What's C? And these are all multiplied, right? So I mean, really, if I was multiplying, I'd have parentheses there. Does that make sense? And then 2, what's A? 1. So you just plug, so that's the next step, plugging in your numbers. Identify A, B, and C, plug in your numbers. Then what do you think once we have this? What are we going to do? Huh? What are we going to do? We're going to go to work. We're going to go to work and do some work, aren't we? Now, from experience, I can tell you this, because most people use a calculator when they do this. And what I've found to be true is if you try to put this all in a calculator at once, it's horrible. So I like to split it up. So how I split it up is I go -5 plus the square root over 2. What's 2 times 1? 2. And then I go -5 minus the square root over 2. And yes, my 5s look like S's. Does that make sense? There's a reason I left this blank, because I don't know what it is yet. So I got to find that. And so I'm going to ask you, in a calculator, can you put in this for me? Parenthesis 5, parenthesis squared, minus 4 times 1 times -10. And tell me what answer you get. Can you put that? Everybody should have a calculator. Can you do that quickly for me? Five squared minus 4 times 1 times -10. Get those calculators out. 5 squared minus 4 times 1 times -10. 65? Anyone else get 65? Perfect. Okay, so we got 65. Good with that? Now, the last step is to put in, so try this for me, on your calculator. And some of you are taking notes, and that's great. But try this on a calculator, because I want to make sure you can do it. Go -5, -5, plus, do you know how to do the square root on your calculator? Second x squared, you'll get square root, and 65. Now there's a little problem because on your calculator it puts a parenthesis right here, doesn't it? Okay, so after you do the top, I want you to press equals. You got a number so far? We're not done yet. We got to divide by 2. Now hit divide by 2. 1.531, right? You remember on the graph it was 1.531? Or, now here's the cool thing. How many of you know how to use the arrow button on your calculator? Have you done that before, the arrow button? Okay, yeah, the arrow's up top. You could use that, or you can just re-enter this back in. You could go -5, so clear it out. Go -5 minus second x squared, 65. Press equals. When you do the top, press equals, and then hit divide by 2. And I bet money you get a -6.531. And how do I know that? Because I remember what the answers were on the graph. Does that make sense? It'll be up to your teacher what you round these to. I rounded to 3 decimals because that's what Desmos did. Okay? But you might round to 1 decimal. Make sense? That's the quadratic formula.
All right, so I want to pause right now. So, Mr. Hopefeld, you have given us a complete solution to this sample problem, right?
Yep.
So I want to ask people, you've already been taking notes, and then the teacher gives you a classic, well-done solution to the sample problem that you had. it would be a good place to copy his solution so we have a good example, and then in the future when we're trying to solve, we can look back at his example. Where would be a good place to write that? What do you guys think? In this box right here? Yeah, so this might be a good place to do it, okay? And the other thing that I wanted to show you was, as Mr. Hofelt was talking, over in this box right here where you've got 4 bullets or 4 arrows, I started writing down the order that he said. Mr. Hofelt, tell me if I'm correct. You said the first step is to identify A, B, and C.
Correct.
Then you said plug in the numbers into the formula,
Correct.
right? And another way to say plug in is substitute, okay? So plug in works, substitute is also a good mathematical word to use. Then the third step, well, I just wrote solve the equation, kind of general. Is that where you went to,
Right.
solve the equation?
Yep.
Okay, all right, good.
Yeah, except, there's just a couple tricks here. And so, maybe tomorrow when you come back and revisit with Mr. Harder and he wants to use these notes, maybe he'll tell you, maybe put those little tricks.
Uh-huh.
I don't know where you'd put, like,
Well,
maybe in a star. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
if-
tricks in the star.
If anything that's important, because we've got two more of these key idea spots.
Right.
That information could go there. And then I'm also saying that in this case, there seems to be more than one solution, right?
Correct.
So even the fourth step could be, there may be 0, 1, or 2 solutions.
Correct.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
When you get more in depth with this, you will have 2 solutions. You could have 1 solution or you could have no solutions. And we're not going to get into that depth today, but
Okay. And then, was there any particular, other than quadratic formula, was there any particular vocabulary word that the kids need to really have here? It looks like if they were talking about this, it seems like they might need to have the word.
well, an
Yeah.
important word for this is called the discriminant.
Okay. So I'm going to write it up here. Discriminant. All right. So boys and girls, the word discriminant, and let me write it larger. Oh yeah, did you write it here?
Yep.
Can you all read this word right here, or do you need it a little bit larger in the back? A little larger? Okay. All right. So. Can you explain to us what the discriminant is, Mr. Hofelt?
The discriminant is the number inside the radical, and the radical is the square root. And it tells us a lot of information, which we're not going to get into today, but Mr. Harder will with you, okay? For example, if it's positive, I know we're going to have 2 solutions. If it's 0, I know we're going to have 1 solution, and if it's negative, I know we're going to have no solutions, because you can't take the square root of a negative number. So you'll get error on your calculator. Yep, 2 minutes. Thanks, buddy.
So Mr. Hofeld, I wrote in the vocabulary section I wrote the word discriminant, and then I wrote what you said. It's the number inside the radical, and then that is b squared minus 4ac. Is that right?
Right.
Okay. And just put a box around that. That seems to be a key word that's going to be important for you all to know. Okay. All right. So bell's going to ring in a minute,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay. Boys and girls, first of all, can I get some feedback on these notes? Raise your hand if taking notes this way, if you think it's going to help you. Raise your hand. Okay. Can I have someone just share why they think these notes will help? Yeah.
Like writing it more yesterday, you could have it for longer.
Uh-huh.
Look at it.
Okay, you have it for longer. Anyone else? Can someone share?
They're organized.
They're organized. Okay, I like that. All right. There are a couple of you. Can I borrow your notes and get them back to you later today? We'll find you. Can I borrow your notes, George? Can I borrow your notes? And we'll get someone from the office to deliver these to you later today. Okay.
Okay.
Jordan.
You have your name on it?
We'll find you, okay?
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks.
Actually, Jordan, write your name on this too. Write your first and last name somewhere so we can do that. Okay.
Huh? 5:49. Catch me later, dude.
Thank you. Okay. All right.
That went well.
You know what?
You just have to take more time to explain.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't have to do that.
Well,
You know.
imagine if you were doing this from the very beginning of the year.
Right.
And like the first 2 weeks in August, like you
Right.
taught them how to do doodle notes, you
Right.
taught them, then it would just flow.
Yes.
So anytime it didn't flow, it wasn't a problem.
No.
It was just
Yeah.
the first time that they heard these
exactly.
things, yeah. But I thought they did well. And
Yeah.
what do you think of the doodle notes?
I like them.
Yeah, yeah.
That's cool.
And I mean, I was doing it in real time. Like I didn't have this planned out.
Right.
I was just,
Yeah,
but
that's good.
I think it worked out.
Yeah.
I think it worked out.
Good.
Hey.
Hey.
I watched you on TV.
Yeah. So.
For a little while, I watched Jeff's back.
That's what I said. That's what I said.
How bad was it?
It was bad. I was stretching.
That was the second time you did it. Were you in show choir?
No, what? Oh, singing?
All right. So let's see. Did you see the doodle notes? I mean, I know you couldn't see them. I know you guys couldn't see the student work. That's why I was going to make some copies and stuff like that. Well, we'll return them later. But thanks.
You're fine. You're fine.
Cool. All right.